Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, The Story Ain't Over. So today I bring you yet another massive book haul because apparently I have zero self-control and also because it's just generally my way of coping. I love books and they make me happy, and so buying them also makes me happy, though my wallet is constantly crying. But speaking of not great mental states and buying things to cope with existing, today's video is being sponsored by BetterHelp. So I feel like a lot of us are always going through things that, other people can't really see behind the cheerful smiles that we might have going. And so I feel like BetterHelp is a really great service for those of us who are maybe struggling on the inside. BetterHelp is this really amazing service that will assess your needs and match you to your own licensed professional therapist. It's super quick. You can start communicating within 48 hours, and it's not a crisis line or a self-help line. It is professional therapy done securely online. I think depending on where you live, you might not have like total access to therapy, and BetterHelp has got this really amazing broad range of expertise through their network of over 20,000 therapists. I know many of you get slightly annoyed with me whenever I talk about a service that is US only or Canada only or whatever, but lucky for you, BetterHelp helps clients worldwide. It's super cool the way that BetterHelp works. You can log into your account anytime and message your therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can also schedule video and phone sessions with your therapist without having to like physically go into a place and feel awkward and all of that. I think it's really exciting how accessible it can make therapy for you, especially for those of us who, have anxiety about like going to a place. You don't have to go through that anxiety. BetterHelp is also really committed to making sure that your therapeutic match works for you, so they make it really easy and free to change your therapist if needed. BetterHelp is more affordable than offline traditional therapy, and there is financial aid available. BetterHelp just wants you to be living your happier life today. So with that said, you can visit betterhelp.com/thisstoryaintover. So that's better HELP.com/thisstoryaintover, which is just my channel name, and you can join 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. I'm lucky for all of my subscribers today and people who are watching this video. You can grab a 10% off discount for your first month of BetterHelp using the link in my description, so betterhelp.com/thisstoryaintover. I think this is a really amazing service, and it just like warms my heart being able to bring this to you guys after having like put up a book haul talking about how I'm buying books instead of going to therapy. So yeah, I think we could all use this and sort of take charge of our mental health. There are so many other factors affecting our happiness these days, and I'm just excited that BetterHelp is helping people just make therapy and prioritizing your mental health a accessible and easy thing. So that's it. Thank you so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video, and now let's get into the books on this massive book haul. Alrighty, so the first book that I have on this list, and I will say most of this list I bought these books myself. I think there's like maybe one that was sent to me or two, but the first book is by an author that I absolutely love, and that is Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. So if you don't know, Olivia Blake is the author of The Atlas Six, which was one of my honorable mentions of my favorite books of 2021. And I had actually read her like self-published version of the book. The traditionally published version is coming out this March. And this book is actually another one of her self-published novels or stories. This one I believe is more of a novella, and it involves a pretty heartbreaking love story, I believe. And the reason I decided to buy this was because I had just seen so many people on Twitter talking about this book, and I just needed to read it. I wanted to know more. It seemed like a heartbreaking story that would just like destroy me, and that is the type of love story I love to read. So I am very excited for this, and I just also love how like simple this self-published version's cover is. I hope that, with all of the attention the author is getting, more of her books can get traditionally published. I think that's really awesome, the trajectory her career has taken. So yeah, very excited for this and cannot wait to dive in and read it. I also just love the way that Olivia Blake writes her characters. They're just always so fleshed out and like vivid to me. So really excited for this. Alrighty, the next book is one that I bought during a bookstore trip that I took in the last video that I put up, which was a vlog where I tested out some of Kayla or Books and Lala's 5-star rated books, and I went to the bookstore during that vlog, and so I grabbed I think like 3 or 4 books, and I think they're the next books on this list. So the first one is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. If If you watched my video, I gave some hints that this might be a book for a certain book club at some point, but Pachinko is a book that I have been meaning to read for ages. I've heard so many great things about it. It is a big book, so that has deterred me from reading it earlier, but I really do want to pick this one up because the adaptation for it, I think it's like a series adaptation, is coming very soon, and one of the main characters is actually being played by one of my favorite Korean actors, which is Lee Min-ho. I used to watch him in so many K-dramas back in high school, and just the fact that he's in the show is like getting me really excited, and I've seen some of the stills and it's just gorgeous, so I'm really excited for the show. So I know I want to read the book before the show comes out, but for those of you who don't know, Pachinko is a bit of a intergenerational story following this Korean family, and it starts with teenage Sunja in the early 1900s in Korea when she falls for a wealthy stranger at the seashore in her home, and things happen and he sort of abandons her and she ends up pregnant and she ends up marrying someone else and going off to Japan. And so her life takes a trajectory that she didn't expect, and then the story later takes like, I think, the later descendants of her family, and overall it just seems like it's going to be a really enchanting story and like powerful story of this family over generations. And just seeing all the stills and like the actors that I know from all these dramas just like in this show has me really excited. So cannot wait for the show to come out and to read this. Alrighty, the next book is also one that I got during that vlog, and that is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. So since that vlog was sort of Kayla and Books and Lala themed, I decided to go buy another one of her favorite books, or 5-star rated books. And My Heart is a Chainsaw was one of her book club picks for the Literally Dead book club, and I've heard amazing things about it. And it's also a horror, and it is written by an Indigenous author, and as you guys know, I'm trying to read more horror. I'm really liking the genre, what I've read of it so far. So this actually follows a main character who is a major 80s slasher fan, and I believe like the book and story itself starts to end up feeling like a slasher situation, which seems really interesting, and that's about all I know, and I don't want to know more going into it. I've heard amazing things about this author as well, so I'm really excited to pick this one up and try out another horror. Alrighty, the next book is also one that I got during that vlog, which a lot of you commented on that video saying you were really excited for this book, and that is The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont. So this is a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, but it's also a historical fiction, and it is set in the 1920s and follows this historical event of when Agatha Christie went missing for 11 days. So for those of you who don't know, Agatha Christie is like this huge mystery writer, and so it follows this historical event when she went missing for 11 days and no one really knew what happened to her or what she did during that time. And there's some other complicated things going on with like her husband and like I think an affair and something else, I'm not really sure, but really excited to see how this one unfolds. I'm really loving historical fictions lately, and I really want to get into more of them. I do feel like the 1920s is like a era that is overdone a lot, like a lot of people write about it, so I do want to expand into other historical times and periods, but this one just seems really fun and interesting, so I wanted to pick it up. Alrighty, the next book is one that I had to buy because it is the new book by one of my favorite authors, and that is This Woven Kingdom by Tara Mafi. So for those of you who don't know, Tara Mafi is one of my favorite authors. I technically have not read her first ever series, which is her dystopian series called the Shatter Me series, but I absolutely love her contemporary books, including A Very Large Expanse of Sea and An Emotion of Great Delight. They are some of my favorite books of all time. I love how they're written and just the issues that she discusses in both. But this book is a little bit different. It's her first YA fantasy, and it's the start of a whole new series. And it is inspired by Persian mythology, I believe, which just seems really exciting. Tara Mafi herself is Persian, so I'm excited to see that part of her background come into the story. And the description says that it is a story of clashing empires, forbidden romance, and a long-forgotten queen who must claw her way through the darkness to reclaim her throne, rebuild her kingdom, and save her people from the half-lives they've been forced to live. That sounds so cool. I don't know anything beyond that, and I don't want to know more because I just want to like dive into it and experience it. And I have heard that the romance in this one is really good and like really heart-wrenching and like forbidden and that kind of thing, so I'm excited for that because I feel like I really like Tara Mafi's other romances as well. Alrighty, the next book is also a new book by one of my favorite authors, and that is Real Easy by Marie Rutkoski. So I absolutely love Marie Rutkoski's The Winner's Trilogy, which was like this YA fantasy trilogy that came out like years and years ago, I think when I was in high school, and I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite things. I love the way it was written, and when I found out that the author was putting out an adult novel, I was really excited. This is an adult thriller, and it's set in 1999, and it actually follows a dancer or a stripper, and she ends up getting mixed up in this sort of murder mystery going on. And that's about all I know because this is a thriller, so I want to keep as many details like a mystery to me until I actually get into reading it. But I have heard so many amazing things about this and so many great reviews about it, so I'm really, really excited to read it because I think it's going to be a fantastic thriller. I do think that the author, even in her previous like trilogy, had a really nice way of like planting small details that you wouldn't realize were a thing until you got to the end. So I think she would be really good at writing a thriller, so I'm super excited for this. This is also one of my anticipated releases for 2022, so I'm hoping it doesn't disappoint. Alrighty, the next book is one that I bought mostly for the cover because it's gorgeous, but also because I've heard amazing things about this author, and also because the concept seems really cool. So that book is Violetta by Isabel Allende. I've heard really amazing things about her books, and this is also a translated fiction. All of her books are translated, I think, from Spanish, and I've always wanted to get into more translated fiction, and this concept just seems really, really cool. Basically, this follows a woman named Violetta who is like a young woman in the 1920s, and I think we're following her life from then until like our present day, even during the pandemic, and we're seeing her experience all of these like major historical events from like the Spanish flu to the fight for women's rights and the new pandemic. And so I'm really curious to see like how this is going to unfold. I feel like it's going to be a really sort of epic and enchanting story of this like one woman's life. I've also heard that like the writing style of this author is just really, really gorgeous, so I'm excited for that as well. And also this cover is just gorgeous, beautiful, enchanting. I love it. Alrighty, the next book is one that I bought because it seemed quite interesting, and it's also a thriller, and I'm trying to read more thrillers, but it's also a book club pick for the Literally Dead book club. I believe it's the pick for March of this year, so I want to grab it before then. And that book is All Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris. And all I really know about this one is that it follows a Black lawyer who gets caught up in this dangerous conspiracy after the sudden death of her boss. All of that seems really interesting, and I feel like it's going to be a really cool mystery and thriller. I've heard amazing things about this so far from other people who have read it, so I'm excited to dive into it, and I also just like, I'm excited to read more thrillers and get into more of this like adult space. I'm just really enjoying all the books that I'm reading, so super excited for this. Alrighty, the next book is one that was not on my radar at all, and I had heard nothing about it from anyone else. Like I haven't seen it on Bookstagram or anywhere, but I was browsing through like Chapters Indigo, their website, and it came up and I clicked on it and I read the description and I was like, this sounds so cool. I need to read this. And that book is The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. And this basically involves a Big Brother-like institution that measures the success or failure of a parent's devotion. And so I believe the main character in this book is sort of tested for how good of a mother she is, which I think is so interesting, and I love this like Big Brother type situation. And there's also just a lot of things that the main character is dealing with. She hasn't lived up to her Chinese immigrant parents' expectations, and she has a husband who is cheating on her, and she only has her one daughter that she really loves and cares for. And obviously she's not perfect, but she's trying. And I just love this concept. I really love books that sort of talk about motherhood and sort of the way that mothers are judged for whether they're being good or bad mothers and how they affect their children's lives. So I feel like that's just a really interesting concept, and I just find it super fascinating when it's explored in books. So this just seems like it's going to be a really interesting read, and I cannot wait for it. If anyone has read this or heard anything about it, let me know in the comments because I feel like I haven't heard anything about it. Alrighty, the next book is one that I also bought on a total whim, and that is Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. And I know next to nothing about this book. I know that it's set in Constantinople in the 15th century and involves some sort of library, I think, or like is set in a library or something like that. Basically, I bought this on a whim because it just seemed like a lot of people were talking about it, and it had this like gorgeous cover, and the idea of like this ancient library got me really excited. But I also know that this author has a really famous other book. I think it won a Pulitzer, which was All the Light We Cannot See, and I haven't read that one, but I've heard amazing things about it, and I believe it's set in like World War II or something. I might be wrong, don't quote me on that. But this one seemed interesting, and I'm also trying to get into more historical fiction. This is a really heavy book though, and it's like really thick, but like holding it, it's like actually physically heavy, but I'm excited for this to try it out. I feel like it's something slightly out of my comfort zone, so I'm excited to see if I'm gonna like it because it's more like a literary book. If anyone has read this, let me know down below and let me know if you think I would enjoy it. Alrighty, the final 8 books on this list for this massive book haul are all romances, adult romances that I'm hoping to read that seem really fun and interesting. The first one was one of my anticipated releases for 2022, and that is The Roughest Draft by Austin Sigmund Broca and Emily Wibberley. These two are a married couple who are also a writing duo. They used to be engaged, now they're married, and they've written a bunch of YA books, which I haven't actually read, but when I found out that they were writing an adult romance together, I was like, yes, give this to me, because it's also about 2 people who are in like publishing / writing, and I was like, yes, I need this in my life. Basically, this book follows 2 authors who are a co-writing duo, like the authors of this book, and they've written many books together that have been bestsellers, but it seems like something went wrong in their relationship, like their working relationship, and they haven't been talking. But they still have 1 book left on their contract that they have to get done before they can sort of part ways. And so this is where the book starts, and we're following them as they're writing this final book. And this just seems like it's going to be fantastic and like ripe with angst, which I love. This also gives me total beach read vibes. The 2 main characters in that book by Emily Henry are both writers as well. So I feel like this will be quite similar to that, and I'm just excited for it. Alrighty, the next book that I picked up is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang, and this is the like really adorable mass market paperbound version, and I actually picked this up intending to read it for a video that I had to cancel because I didn't have the time to finish it. But I had been meaning to read this for ages because so many people love it and have talked about it, and guys, I finally read it and it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. There were certain things that like I didn't love, but I think overall it was such a cute read, such a cute romance, and like one that will just like hit you in all the feels. It had some really great steamy scenes as well, so like overall just an awesome romance to read if you're looking for one. But I realized I didn't say what this is about in any way, shape, or form. Basically, this follows our main character, Stella, who is on the autism spectrum, and she is also like an econometrician, so she very much likes math and like numbers and that kind of thing. But she hasn't really had much luck with her social life and sort of her dating life as well. And her mother is sort of pressuring her to get into a relationship and start thinking about starting a family and all of that. And so what Stella decides to do is hire an escort to teach her how to be better in a relationship and just do better social things. And so from here we find out that the escort is Michael, and he actually has this like deep sort of past and personal things going on, and the book is told from both their perspectives, and so we see how they sort of fall in love with each other, and it's honestly the most adorable, cutest thing. So highly recommend if you're looking for a romance. Alrighty, the next book that I picked up is by an author that I really love, and it's a bit of a romance. She sort of writes like in between a romance and like literary fiction, but that book is Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I absolutely loved Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and also Daisy Jones and the Six. I've also read, I think, 1 or 2 of her other books from like her backlist. So this is one of her backlist books, like it came out ages ago. And I've always wanted to read this one because it seems like a really interesting concept, and I love this sort of idea. Basically, it follows our 29-year-old main character, Hannah Martin, and she has sort of reached that point in life where she still doesn't know what she wants to do. She's lived in countless different cities and held countless different meaningless jobs, and she just doesn't know where she's going. And when she has like a really disastrous breakup, she decides to return to her hometown in LA, and she ends up going out with her friend one night. And there they run into her ex-boyfriend from high school, whose name is Ethan. And this is where the story gets interesting. It's past midnight when Hannah's friend Gabby asks her if she's ready to go home, but it's also when Ethan quickly offers to give her a ride if she wants to stay out longer. And so from here, Hannah's like left with indecision, and so the book is told in like 2 different timelines of if she took one decision or the other. So if she went with her friend Gabby or if she went with Ethan, and you're seeing her life unfold from the effects of this one decision in her life. And it seems like she finds love in both different situations, which begs the question, like, is there such thing as a soulmate, or has she found the person she loves in either life? And it seems like it's gonna be a really interesting sort of take on this idea, which I love. I love the idea of like parallel universes or like what ifs, and I'm very excited for this. Alrighty, the next couple books are from the same series. So I bought the first one, and then Netflix actually sent me the second one. So they are the Bridgerton books. So I bought The Duke and I because the show is coming out in March, and I was like, I need to read these before the second season comes out because I absolutely loved the first season. It's basically like Gossip Girl meets Pride and Prejudice, if you've never heard of what it's about. So this is the first book, Duke and I, which is the basis for the first season. So I have seen the first season, so this is sort of like a repeat, but I did want to read the first book before reading the second book before the second season comes out, because this is the basis for the second season, and this one's called The Viscount Who Loved Me. And the fun thing about these books is that it follows this one family called the Bridgertons, and they have like 8 different kids in that family, and so we're following a different Bridgerton sibling during each book and also during each season. So yeah, super excited for this. Netflix sent me this second one in their Netflix book club like book box that they sent to a bunch of influencers. I did an unboxing on my Instagram, which you should definitely go check out if you want to see all these fun things that happen in real time. But yeah, really excited to read these before the second season comes out. Alrighty, the next book that I have on this list is The Singles Table by Sarah Desai, and this is another romance, and this one seems really fun. It follows a free-spirited lawyer who ends up at the singles table at a wedding, I think her cousin's wedding or something, and she meets this like grouchy bachelor at the wedding at the singles table, and she decides that she's going to set him up with her celebrity clients and sort of help him out. And of course, from there, they fall for each other, which seems like it's gonna be a really cute situation. I love the idea of like people falling in love when like one of them is trying to set the other up. I don't know why I like that specific situation, but it just sounds fun. This one is also by a South Asian author and features a South Asian main lead, so I'm excited for that as well. Alrighty, the next book is one that I think I mentioned in my TBR for February, but that is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. And when I was talking about this, I mentioned that I totally got this recommendation from Azanta, who is a book talker. She also has a great Instagram as well, and she has some great recommendations, shares my love of Sabaa Tahir, so I know I can trust her. But basically she made like one TikTok about this book, about how she loved it and like how it gave her sort of Emily Henry vibes and was just like an overall great romance. So I knew immediately that I had to go buy it. So I literally closed TikTok and bought the book immediately after, because this is the hold she has on me. So yeah, this one gives me a lot of like love hypothesis vibes as well. It involves like a online matchmaking service, I think, and a fake dating relationship as well, and it just seems like it's gonna be a lot of fun. I also haven't read a Christina Lauren book before, like fully through. I have started The Unhoneymooners and I'm hoping to finish it at some point, but I have heard that this one is one of their best books. Alrighty, and then the final book on this very massive book haul is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, and this one was another Reese Witherspoon book club pick. And recently I've been seeing this book all over Bookstagram, and I saw so many gorgeous photos of it, and I was like, what is this book? I need to read it. It looks gorgeous. And I looked up the description and it seemed like something that was exactly up my alley, and I've actually started reading this one and I already love it. But basically this follows like 2 different writers, so one is an erotica writer and then one is like more of a literary fiction writer, and they used to know each other in like high school or university, I think, and sort of fell for each other across 7 days and had this like really magical week together. But because of circumstances and certain reasons, they're ripped apart and, you know, no longer in contact. But over the years, I think about a decade, they've been writing to each other through their books and the many books that they've put out. And so the book actually begins when the 2 of them meet again at this writers' convention in June, and they spend another 7 days together. And then we also like flip back to the 7 days back when they were younger. And so you're seeing both timelines sort of go along and how they have fallen in love. And it just seems like such a romantic story, and I've already started and I love the voice of the main character, the main girl character. So excited to see how it's gonna go. I've also heard like amazing things from other people. I will say I've heard many people say that there's like triggers to this, so I would just be careful of that, like search them up, content warnings and all that, but I think it's going to be a really great one. And with that, those are all the books on this massive book haul. I hope you guys found a new book to pick up or that you're interested in, and I would love to hear from all of you what you thought of any of these books, because that always helps me decide my TBRs. And of course, once again, thank you so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. I think their service is just so amazing in the way that it makes getting a therapist very accessible to anyone. And don't forget that I have an exclusive deal for you if you use my link in the description down below, betterhelp.com/thisstoryaintover. You can get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. I highly recommend going and getting that deal and using that link, and thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. As always, if you guys haven't already, go check out my Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and TikTok in the description down below. I talk more about books and just things that are happening in real time in my life, so highly recommend checking that out as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. So please remember that this story ain't over. Bye!